Hi, in this lecture we are going to be cleaning up this list item file a little bit, and what we are going to do is think a bit about how to create multiple instances of our list item and how to make it seem as if it is one long list as opposed to individual list items while still maintaining this single list item class. So for starters, one thing that I have noticed is my WordPress PHP background has come back to haunt me, and I've added a semicolon there. We do not need semicolons at the end of our lines in Python. Fantastic. So what I'm going to do to start off with this lecture is to add a new list at the top of my file. So this is above where the blueprint of the class is created. The reason that I'm doing this above where the class is created is because I want to use this code above my class within my class. So just a little bit of background behind Python. In PHP, the way that you would create a list of objects would be known as an array, and we would declare an array like that. And we can put multiple things into this array. Now, I don't want to get too much into what an array is, and I have made the assumption here that you do have a general understanding of an array. If not, I will be covering it in the next few lectures within the Python paradigm, so don't worry about it. With that being said, Python strictly does not call an array, but rather calls an array something called a list or a dictionary. Now, I'm not going to get into the difference between a list and a dictionary right now, but it is helpful for you to understand that there is a difference between the two. So what I'm going to be creating is a list, because we are creating list items, and this list is going to have a numeric value attached to something. So the way that this would visually be represented would be something like, at position 0, we want to have the value of something. Then within that same variable, we want something to be added at position 1. And this would be another thing, etc., etc. And then at position 2. So some important things to notice about this is that the indexes start at 0, so 0, 1, 2, etc., etc. And the length of this would now be 3 because there are 3 compartments to this array, which I will be using the word list and array interchangeably, just knowing that array and list and dictionary are all essentially the same thing. So this can all be saved as one variable, and if I want to now call this variable, I will call whatever the name of the variable is at position 0, which would now give me something. If I called at position 1, it would give me another thing. So this is a nice way for us to save up groups of lists. So in our Python example, we are going to create a new list. So let's create that new list variable now. So the variable is called list. And the way that we create a new list in Python is simply by saying list. So list is equal to a new list. So now Python knows that there are going to be multiple variables saved inside of this. So what we can essentially do now is when our list item is created, we can append that specific instance of the list item to the list variable. It may be better to call this list items, so we know that it is a list, that it is a multiple list items. So let's write some code here just so that it makes a little bit more sense. So what I'm going to do is say list items, and then I want to run a function on list items that basically appends a value to this list, as we saw the way that arrays or lists or dictionaries save multiple values. So obviously we want to append a new value. So I use the keyword append, and what that does is it will now allow me to pass something into this as a value. And if I wanted to append something else to that, test, or again, etc., etc., I could then print out that this list items. as such. So what I'm going to do here is every time we create a new list item, we're going to add that list item to our list items list. Now I hope that makes sense. I'm using a lot of the same words and there's a lot of jargon thrown in there. Hopefully it will make more sense when I start typing, when this starts coming together and we start testing it. So what I'm going to do as to pass into our list items is the variable self, which is coming in when we create this instance. So I'm actually passing the physical object of this list item. So everything affiliated to this specific list item. So that would include title, is complete, and all of the methods attached to that as well into this particular list. So now we have at position 0 of our list, or our arrayed list, we have our first instance of our object. So what I'm going to do is maybe just change this up a bit and say list item 1 so that we know that it is list item 1. And list item 1 would be wash the dishes. So now list item 2 is going to be something else. And let's say list item 2 is wash the floor. I suppose that makes sense. So wash the dishes, wash the floor. These are now two separate list items that have been added. So I want you to try and guess what would happen now if we had to print out our list items. So yeah, just something for you to think about. I'm going to run this code now and see what happens and then explain the process. So let's make sure we're in the right directory. ls, yes, we've got list item there. Python list item.py. If you tab, it should automatically find what you're looking for to the best of its ability. So I just typed out Python and then I went L and pressed tab and it automatically picked up that I was trying to find list item, fortunately because it was the only file in this folder. Cool, and what is it giving us? List item is not defined. Oh, here we go. We have not defined list item. I'm going to comment out this line of code for now because we're not using list item at all. So we are using list item 1 and list item 2. So list item really has become redundant at this point. Let's try that again. And what it is doing here, it is returning an array. You can see it's going square brackets, and this is an instance of our list item and another instance of our list item. So in essence, what we want to do, because really this means very little to us, is we want to get attributes out of our list items. So what we would really need to do then is iterate through each of these and then find the title or find is completed. So the way we do that is by using a for loop. So I'm sure you've used for loops before in PHP and in WordPress. The WordPress has the main loop that is used to loop through posts is a for loop. So the way that we would create a for loop in Python and for Django would be to write the keyword for underneath that, and then we want to pass in what our each iteration item will be. So for each item in and then list items for each item in list items, and I'm going to continue putting a colon there just for best practice and to show that the next piece of code is going to be indented. We don't really need to put the colon there, but yes, just something to keep in mind. And then I'm going to, for every single list item saved as an item, so within this code block, everything that is indented inside of the for loop, so anything that would be in there, is now going to be an item. So for the purpose of everything inside of here, we now have a single item. So that would be this item on the first iteration and the second item on the second iteration. So this would be the first item at position 0 because we started 0 in the first iteration, and then list item 2 would be at position 1, which is the second iteration of item. So if we print out item now, we should get out this section, this first main list item instance, and then this main list item instance underneath it. Let's run that. And yes, we have our two list item instances. Again, that doesn't really mean anything to us. So why don't we now access the title of our list item, and we should be able to iterate through each of our list items and print out the title. So what I want to see now is wash the dishes followed by wash the floor. Let's see if that works. Fantastic, that is working like a charm. This is really, really good. So just to iterate what we were speaking about before moving on to the next lecture, is we are first creating our new list called list items. We create a list by using the keyword and function list. We're now creating our class. So this is a blueprint. This doesn't explicitly get run unless we call it. So we are calling the first one down here. We are saying variable list item 1 is equal to a new list item, and we're passing in wash the dishes into that. So now it goes into our class. It sets is complete default to false, title equal to nothing, and then it runs our init constructor function. Firstly, it passes in the self variable, and then it passes in the title, which would be wash the dishes. So then we are now using the special function append on our list items list to append the value to our list items, which is self. And then we are actually setting the title of this particular instance to the title there. So self the title equal to the title that's coming in. So this here that's getting passed is the entire instance into this particular list. Then we are doing our functions. We're not running them. We've commented one of them out here, so we're not using these, but we could use them if we want to. These two are commented out, so we're not using them at the moment. And then the same thing happens when, so we jump out of that class when it's created, and then we do the same thing for our next list item 2, where we create that. It's now setting this particular instance to appending it to the list of items and setting the title to the title. Then we jump out of this and we say for every single item in the list items, we want to print out that specific list item title. So that one's title. So if we want to set them all as complete, we could just as easily just say set as complete, and it would iterate through both of these and it would set them both to complete. Fantastic.